Hello Musici, let's continue our journey with Riepel, and we have to start this section. So I don't know what's going to happen because it's a new section, so let's read it after the flower. But may I not rub one and another thing under the nose of the Ubstadeter in the future? For he holds himself above the greatest masters who do not have the time to make themselves familiar with the compass. In addition, he has written an entire musical name, book, or dictionary in which he gathers all the musical deeds. IG of my lord, of a thousand others like him, whose births, lives, and deaths are told in great details. Only he either leaves out the widely famous chapelmeister in O Polisburg and many other upright musicians, so he looks for nothing at all praiseworthy by which to remember them. And why are you worried about a big man, you small boy, even if a mosquito bites him on the sole of his foot? However, he would have without fail put you in the dictionary too, had he in fact not had so many issues with the first chapter. For he recently laughed again even about the round that symbol, which since he has already often put me in mind of a new theme. With whatever difficulty this invention poses, I will exert all the more industry on it, although it cost me a whole bundle of paper. For I noticed that in composition, as also in music generally, one can set everything right with variations. Yes, there is a section with a little text, but musical examples are going to arrive. Sometimes it may happen. Ezekiel from Australia, hello. One does not have to be so wasteful with the paper either. You seem to me just like that physician to whom the command, in whose service he was, said he should go to each of the other commanders with help and advice in hand, because of a completely unknown plague in the barracks. Alas, many soldiers have already died of it. The former answered, Your Excellency, do not trouble yourself about it. I will determine the cause of the sickness, even were the entire army to succumb to it. What's this? Okay. And now I will explain the round scene by which the art of permutation was understood in the first chapter. Ars permutatoria, the arte combinatoria, or the art of combination, of which I will relate something tomorrow. Tomorrow, according to how the book is written. It may be at the end of the book. By which the art of permutation was understood in the first chapter. I know well that you also learned to multiply from your lord in school. Perhaps, however, the following multiplication and etc. and duplication is not yet known to you. Example 1, I think is this exactly. This example of multiplication. So basically, what is this? This is 1 per 2, 2 per 3, 3 per 4, 4 per 5, 5 per 6, 6 per 7. Okay, kind of fractals. Your first name is Jacob, and your first name is Jacob, really, and your surname is Rab. Now, Rab has 3 letters, namely R, A, and B, which 3 letters can be changed around in 6 ways. For I might say, on account of multiplication, 1 times 1 is 1, and thus 1 cannot be rearranged. I say, however, 2 times 1 is 2. Thus, I see that 2 can be rearranged in 2 ways. For example, Ra and Ar. I say 3 times 2 are 6, which elucidates why, for example, the 3 letters in your surname can be rearranged in 6 ways. Rab, Rba, Arb, Abr, Bra, and the bar line. No, of course. In order to spare you, I will undertake to multiply out the numbers from 1 to 50, shown in that example, in order to demonstrate the numbers that result from multiplying, as shown on the left hand. Whether this table of numbers is called encyclopedia or the key to all sciences, or whether one or another sophist holds it in contempt, or whether the recently published very important cyclopedia or encyclopedia has opened the eyes of many again or closed them even more completely, I do not even want to know. I do not even want to know. I only know what it has done for me, and that has been of the greatest service. Thus, in this type of multiplication, I must once again multiply what results on the left hand by the number following on the right hand, and I say 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 1 are 2, 3 times 2 makes 6, 4 times 6 makes 24, 5 times 24 makes 120, 6 times 120 make 720. Quite so, as you see, I have multiplied out from 1 to 50 in just that way. Thus, if my name were not Rab, but rather named Rabe, with 4 letters, R-A-B-E, Rabe, that name Rabe could be rearranged 24 times, and thus simultaneously each of the 4 letters can stand at the beginning 6 times. Quite so, I will try that out quickly. Rabe, Rabe, okay, we got it, we don't have to read all of this, otherwise it seems like a mental illness to read Rabe, Rabe, Reab, Rebab, Brerbl. It is really true, you're right. The 4 letters remain the same, but were simply switched around. Thus, my baptismal name, Jacob, because it consists of 5 letters, can be switched 120 times, and furthermore, each of these 5 letters can stand at the front for 24 times, and thus can, as I can see in the multiplication table, 6 different things be switched around 720 times. For example, can Jacobus with its 7 letters be switched around 5040 times, and each of the letters stands at the head 720 times, and so on with all of the others? Certainly, for that reason, the switching around can go forever, as the numbers prove. Just as the ancient German verse say, "Es everything has a certain appropriate place and purpose where nothing can possibly be too little or nor too much." I believe that the druggist and the gracious Lord Doctor could make use of this art in order to mix many thousand million of combinations out of cold, hot, moist, dry. Cold, hot, moist, dry are the 4 property of the things. Something related to ancient philosophy. And 20 more things, also by the cooks, in order to cook up their food in so many different ways. Furthermore, many a roguish innkeeper may have the benefit of this method in order to mix his wines together. But what are you trying to say to me with that? Just as letter, so can musical note be mixed, namely 2 notes twice, 3 notes 6 times, 4 notes 24 times, 50 notes as many times as shown in the immense E, as it were inexpressible number sequence at the end of my multiplication table. That is astonishing. I will try it at first, however, with just 2 notes, namely C and D. Now I will C and D. Now I will change around these notes, namely to set D in front. It is true that these 2 cannot be rearranged more than 2 different ways. Now, however, with 3 notes, for example, Do, Ut, Re, Mi, Pam, Pa, 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 Po, Pa, 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 Po. That is really a 6-fold permutation. Now I will change around 4 notes, but as you can see, I'm adding. It's a quite nice melody because you cannot find any triple which is repeating itself. So it's a very nice thing in the art of variation. Six-fold permutation. Now I will change around 4 notes, C, D, E, and F in 6/8 meter. So we have do, pa, pa, fa, do, re, fa, mi, do, mi, re, fa, do, mi, fa, re, do, fa, mi, re, and going on that way up to the end. You have carried out your task very well. Each of the 4 notes remains in their designated place with proper order, namely the 2 quarter notes remain on the C and E throughout, and the 2 eighth notes, on the other hand, remain on D and F. Yes, so D and F is using the short note, the eighth note, and with C and D is using the long note, let's say the quarter note, combining and creating 24 possibilities. 24 combinations, as you can see from this picture. Then you have carried out your task very well. Each of the 4 notes are okay. However, I see that many of the permutations yield a melody that is not of much use, but rather 2 for 8. That doesn't matter. One out only to select the best of them. At the same time, music lovers are constantly asking for ever stranger ideas, and besides, no composer would be needed anymore. However, if I look at just these 4 notes, or rather your 24 permutations of them from before, choose a measure from them here and there, and if I combine them with 1 or 2 completely different measures, I can have 24 beginnings of a theme in a twinkling of an eye. In order to prove this to you visually, I will mark the newly added measures with the cross, but leave those, however, that already have numbers assigned to them. This way. So, do, re, mi, fa, fa, pa, do, re, mi, fa, do, fa, sol, fa, mi. Nice. So we can see these are the 2 added measures, and these are the 2 measures arriving from the previous combinations, permutations. It is true that you have taken the first and third measures from my permutations. I would have recognized them even if you had done it without numbers 1 and 7. 1 and 7 because they mean number 1, this part, and number 7. He took these 2 elements. I will continue in this manner. Then do, re, ra, mi, fa, re, fa, mi, fa, do, do, pi, 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 bo, pa, pi, ro, pa, pa, pa. And here I see the second and the eighth of my permutations, which now from the first and fourth, rect third measures, so the mistake. First and third measures. Here they are. Now be still. I will derive something from each of your permutations. And now we have some melodies, 4 melodies. Let's play them. Or better, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or now do, do, fa, pa, 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 po, pa, po, pa, pa, po, pe, po, pi, pa, po, pa, 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 pa. This change between 3, 4 and 6, 8 is sometimes quite strange. Pam, pam, pa, pa, fa, 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 fa. Pam, pa, 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 pa. And pa, 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 pa. Look, now have already taken care of 12 of your permutations. As you see, because however none of the other notes begins with a tonic, see, I will place a completely different measures at the beginning and at the end in order to use the remaining 12 permutation like in fashion. So is basically using all the permutation to create several melodies. Then do sol fa mi la sol fa mi fa so fa ba ba. Then do sol fa mi re do fa ro do ti do po fa po fa re sol la fa fa mi. Do sol fa la sol fa ti ri ti ri ti ti. As you can see, the first two bars are the same. Here, then fa pa re fa mi fa sol la sol fa fa mi. What is changing is this bar using other. So the remaining, as you can see, the remaining permutations. And so we really have 24 several different melodies. Let's read the penultimate one. Do, sol, fa, la, sol, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, do, mi, re, fa, do, la, fa, re. Then do, sol, fa, mi, re, do, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, do, la, sol, fa, mi, sol, fa, mi, re. Here it is. Then do, sol, fa, mi, re, do, ta, 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 to, ta, to, fa, do, re, mi, la, re, sol, mi. Or do, sol, fa, la, sol, fa, sto, ti, te, ti, ta, to, fa, do, ta, re, ti, te, ti, ta, ta, ti, re. Next, the third one of this page. Next, do, sol, fa, la, sol, fa, ti, 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 tu, ta, ta, ha, ta, tu, to, ta, 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 ta. Next, do, ro, fa, la, sol, fa, ti, ri, ti, 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 tu, fa, la, sol, fa, sol, ta, 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 ti, ta, ta, mi, re. Next, do, sol, fa, la, sol, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, do, fa, la, fa, sol, mi, fa, mi, re. Next, do, sol, fa, la, re, do, fa, re, do, si, do, fu, fa, re, do, mi, la, sol, fa, mi, re. That is astonishing. That is not really astonishing, but completely natural. You will, however, hopefully recognize the arrangement of notes in 6/8 meter. Do, mi, re, fa, mi, do, fa, re. For in 3/8 meter, I would have to write the two measures in this way. So basically, here there is this line, and then he put these lines here in the middle of the 6/8 bars to create the two 3/8 bars. I know such arrangements are familiar to me from the first chapter. If I know likewise change around the notes of the newly added measures and combine them with your permutation, I could derive several thousand themes from them in an instant. I believe it, for as I see in the multiplication table, a mere 8 notes can already be changed around in 40,000 ways. And just as the notes, so entire measures can be changed around to the extent tolerated by tonal order and melody. Where is something, a dot arriving, because this is becoming very long. Okay, we can stop here. I understand that two, namely 5 names, Jacob, Philip, Hans Michael, Gerard, and Adam, can be changed or shifted around 120 times, just as if they were 5 single letters. But if one wanted to change around these 5 names as well as their letter, a very large number would result once again. A very large number, to be sure, because in these 5 names there are almost more than 20 letters. The number would run not into just millions or billions, but trillions. One might merely count up the letters and find the number in that table. But it seems to me that the mere concept of this art of permutation is sufficient to remind me henceforth of a new theme and to vary my compositions at my discretion in thousands and thousands of ways. Formerly, I had to reflect a long time in order to compose a fermata cadenza, during which the accompanying instruments remain silent. Now, however, I will always just take the next best measures out of the aria, which will provide me with an introduction to it. Indeed, that would yield 20 cadenzas from one measure from a single aria. This is important because how can you create a phrase which is similar but not the same, okay? To have more variety, or a subject with a little variations, what can you change? What can you do? This is a technique you can use. The technique we saw before. Now, however, I will always just stay. Now, however, I will always just take the next best measures out of the aria, which will provide me an introduction to it. Indeed, that would yield 20 cadenzas from one measure from a single aria, 20 cadenzas. And because I already understand a little about figure-based, it will not be difficult for me to likewise sing and to vary one aria 20 times, or one after the other. My Lord will be amazed, for he has thought quite often how it is possible that after so many things have been composed in this world and are still being composed, all these 1,000,000,000 musical pieces are nearly as different from one another as are men among themselves, whose outward appearance and feelings are so various. I won't mention enduring clothing styles, but painters, portrait artists, and generally all artists must have some form of these permutations in order to invent every new thing. I myself, although with difficulty, have made countless variations upon the first chapter, so that unfortunately I really began to be arrogant about it, and to ascribe to my own abilities that which is merely placed there by nature, which now, thanks heaven, I'm learning by means of the art of permutation. Mustn't the orator also be well versed in this? Without a doubt. I have been assured for many years that even the Greek heathen philosopher Aristotle invented and pondered all types of syllogisms, and indeed other innumerable super octodecim partiens quadragesimas quinta by means of permutation. I challenge all the American people, English people, to read this Latin word. Super octo decim partiens quadragesima quintas by means of permutation, with the help of these unbelieving followers in the beloved garden house that lay outside the city of Athens. Was it not he who invented gunpowder? No, he did not invent gunpowder, but it is claimed that he drowned himself in despair. How could the obstinate villain not have had the foresight to realize that God did not create the world and its people so that each could shorten his life according to his own whim? But did he know that then that, for example, 5, 6 or more letters could be rearranged just so many times and not more? The writer whose work I have here on this table is said to have doubted that. You see, I mean that each of the following two measures can be rearranged 720 times. For example, please don't put all the times, all the possibilities. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, or mi, sol, fa, mi, re, do. The first measure can certainly be arranged 720 times, but not the second. Why? Because probably there is the same notes repeated. That is something new. And why not? Doesn't it have 6 notes just as the first? because the first have 6 different notes, while the second has rather 2 alike, namely 2 Is. One still counts the 720, but must divide it by the number 2. From that division, 360 results. From this, one can conclude that 6 notes, of which 2 are the same, can be rearranged only 360 times, and under no circumstances 720 times. If, however, several or all sorts of like notes are found in a single measure. If, however, several or all sorts of like notes are found in a single measure, so even with different rhythms or repetition. Or do, re, mi, fa, fa. Then one must look for an entirely new rule. For here, in the first measure, there are 3 Cs and 2 Ds. Therefore, I say that 3 can be rearranged 6 times and 2 twice. I then multiply these together and say 2 times 6 makes 12. With this 12, I divide the 120, which 120 arises here as usually, from the number 5 and arrive at 10. Thus, the first measure can be rearranged 10 times and not more. Okay, and here the example. Pom pom pam pam pom, or do nom pom pam pam, and I leave you to play the other melodies. Let's see. This chapter is really heavy, eh? I mean, okay, because there are in the second measures 2 Cs and 2 Ds and 2 Es, namely 6 notes, which can usually be arranged 720 ways. I thus multiply these 3 times 2 by themselves and say 2 times 2 are 4 and 2 times 4 are 8. With these 8, I divide the 720 and arrive at 90, which the correct permutation of the second measure demonstrates. In the case of the third measure, I have 2 Cs and 2 Ds, and 2 Is, okay, and 2 Fs. So I multiply these 4 2's together and say 2 times 4 makes 4, 2 times 2 makes 4, and 2 times 4 makes 8, and 2 times 8 makes 16. So it's talking about this measure, right, the third one, because we have 4 notes. With this number, I divide the, which usually arises from the number 8 and arrive at this number, which is the true number of permutations of the 8th notes in the third measure. You can try this at home at your leisure, but we won't do it because we don't want to get crazy with these mathematical things. Once, when I was in Poland, I rearranged the 6 notes for all the 6 notes C, C, D, D, E, E for all of 4 weeks according to this rule, when Kircher, Athanasius Kircher, and in addition to him, Tacket considered to be a commonplace, and I could still never find out the true number of permutation until I finally got a hold of the algebra books by the Abbot Prestet, where, right in the first volume on page 134, I noticed the error of the true priests. Then I arranged it as it can be seen above at the NB. I do not consider it necessary to call this 8 a cube or solid under any circumstances. Okay. I noticed thereby that 3, 4, 5 or more notes, when they are all the same, cannot be rearranged. But this is another thing, and we will continue with this. No, let's arrive to this point. Okay. So I noticed thereby that 3, 4, 5 or more notes, when they are all the same, cannot be rearranged. For example, this 4. Tell me, however, how many ways can the following be rearranged? Here, because they are exactly the same note and the same value. This. And these 4 can be rearranged in 24 different ways, because they differ from each other in respect to their duration. For one is a whole note, another is a half, the third a quarter, and the last an eighth note. So we can create a lot of different rules according to the note, the pitch, but even the durations, and we can even say according to the time signature and other things. So every bar can even then, every collection of bar, bunch of bars can be permutated in many different ways. So we have trillions of combinations. That's why at the end it's impossible to compose all the possible music. And so let's continue in the next video because this is very heavy and long. To make mistakes is human. To learn from them and persist, that's the way of a musicus practicus. Whether your musical goal may be, there is a secret formula to reach it. And no, it's not a magic trick, it's something much more concrete. Perseverance in good things. If you study every day, if you learn even just one small thing every day, you're moving forward, always. And one day, after a month, 6 months, a year, 10 years, you look back and realize you have become a different musician, step by step, without even noticing it. That's the spirit of a musicus practicus. That's why every day on Patreon I share new content to help you learn something new every day, support you on your path of study, inspire you with fresh ideas and new musical perspectives. One day we talk about musical rhetoric, another day I post an exclusive video on improvisation, and another day an article on Renaissance counterpoint, and so on. Don't miss this opportunity. The choices you make today will shape the musicians you'll become tomorrow. Join the Musicus Practicus community, join us on Patreon, and with a small monthly contribution you'll also be supporting this great global educational project. Go to the link, choose the contribution you want to give, and start learning every single day. To make mistakes is human. To learn from them and improve every day, that's the way of Musici Practici.